Good morning, year one. I hope you are okay. We are going to do some English today, and similar to last week, we are going to innovate the story of We're Going on a Bear Hunt, but you've already innovated your characters, so this week we are going to innovate the setting. Can you remember what a setting is? That's right, it's a place. Well done. Now, can you remember the settings from the actual bear hunt story? Can you remember where the family had to travel through? Pause the video here for me, have a really quick think, and then come back to me and we'll go through them together, okay? See you in a moment. I hope you had a good think of the settings from the bear hunt story. I wonder if you can remember from your retell last week. I could remember by doing the actions, you know, from when I acted out the story. So I can remember the long, wavy grass. I can remember the thick, oozy mud. I can remember the cold, deep river. I can remember the swirling, whirling snowstorm. And I can remember the tall, dark forest. Now, there was also, what else was there? There was one last thing. Who can remind me? It was gloomy. It was the cave, that's where we found the bear, wasn't it? Okay, so we've got to think of some different settings. Now, let's have a think. So we're going to change them. There's no point writing about them just yet because we don't know what they look like, do we? Okay, so today we're going to draw the pictures of the different settings. So there were 6 different places, 6 different things that the family had to go through to find the bear. Now, these could be in all sorts of different places. So it could be maybe through the mountains, through a desert, through a giant pile of cushions. It's your story, so it is completely up to you. Now, I'm going to have a think. I have got on my laptop here, I've got the 6 different pictures from the different places that the family walked to. So I'm going to show you those in just a second. And then I'm going to show you the ideas that I have had. Now, to make it easier for me, I've done it on little pieces of paper, or maybe a post-it note, or maybe you could cut up a piece of paper to just draw your little pictures on, because that's going to help us for the rest of the week, okay? And it could also help us for the end of the week. I'll show you how to go with that later on in the week though. But if you just get some pieces of paper and you cut them up into smaller pieces like this, and then we can get started. So bear with me. Okay, so these are the different places that the family went through. Now, we've got the long wavy grass, we've got the thick oozy mud, the cold deep river, the swirling whirling snowstorm, the tall dark forest, and the gloomy cave. Now, with my little pieces of paper, I'm going to draw the pictures of my settings, and I'm going to stick them over the top. So I know that I've managed to think of 6 different settings, okay? So I want you to pause the video here for me. Have a really quick think about the places that you might like to change your settings to. But one of the really important things is you've got to bear in mind your character. Now, I chose a tortoise, didn't I? So I'm going to think of all the different settings that a tortoise might go to or might see on their travels. So have a think about your animal, and maybe you could link it, or link your settings to where your animals might go. So pause my video now for me. Have a quick think about where you might go and get those little bits of paper sorted, and then we can get started on thinking of our different settings, okay? So pause now and then come back to me in a second. Okay, so I hope you've got your little bits of paper sorted, and I hope you've had a really quick think about the different things that you could turn your settings into. Now, I've had to kind of change my plan a little bit because I've done all of my settings, I've done all the pictures, but I tried to stick them over the laptop and it doesn't really work because you can't see them because the light shines through. So let's have a look at my first setting, and then you can have a think about and draw yours for me, okay? So this is my first setting. It's a desert, and I've had a quick think. I've not written them down, but I've thought about some adjectives that I could maybe describe my setting with. So I thought of hot and sandy. So I've got a hot, sandy desert. Now, what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to take your first little piece of paper, and I'd like you to think about a setting that your animal might have to go through and then that your family would have to go through to find said animal. So it can be anywhere. It is your story. You can have a think for me. So I'd like you to have a go at your first setting and then come back to me. Okay, I hope you had a really good go at your first setting and you've added a little bit of detail. As you can see on my first setting, I added the sun, so I know that it's going to be hot. And then the sand, you may not have known what the sand was if it was just the sand, so I added a cactus and I added a tumbleweed to mine just to add a little bit more detail. So now we've done our first setting, we're going to put that to one side, but we're going to keep it safe, okay? So pop it in a pile because we're going to use these for the rest of the week as well. Let's have a look at my second setting. This is my second piece of paper, so this is my second setting, and I've drawn kind of like a jungle of weeds. So again, I haven't written them down just yet, but I've had a quick think and I thought maybe I could describe my jungle of weeds with thick and green. So my family would have to walk through the weeds to get to the tortoise. So the second job that I want you to do, I want you to get your second little piece of paper and I want you to have a go at your second setting for me. Again, it is completely up to you. You can do wherever you would like. Have a think about some adjectives. Don't worry about writing them down, but maybe use some colours to make it easier, okay? Because I've used a colour in this one, haven't I? I've said thick and green. But it might make it easier for when we start to describe our settings. So go and have a go at your second one for me and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I hope your second setting went well. I've added it to my pile, so now I've got my hot sandy desert and my thick green weeds. So I've kept them in a pile so that they are nice and safe. I'm going to have a go at my third setting now, and I'm going to change it up a bit. It's not going to be very colourful, so I'm not quite sure how I'm going to describe this one. Let's have a look. Okay, here's setting number 3 then. I have used rocks. Now I'm sorry about my colouring and I don't have a grey felt tip, so I've had to use a pen. But I'm going to use the adjective sharp and jagged. Okay, so you can have a go now at your third setting for me. Again, same as before, absolutely anything you want. It could be a meadow of flowers. I know I got a bit stuck thinking about these ones. It could be a meadow of flowers. It could be, as I said before, it could be a giant pile of cushions. It could be, oh, what could it be? An army of trolls. It could be absolutely anything. You have a think for me. Have a go at your third setting and then come back to me. Okay, I'm going to add my sharp jagged rocks to my pile then. So far I've got my hot sandy desert, I've got my thick green weeds, and I've got my sharp jagged rocks. I'm keeping those in a pile, I'm keeping them safe because I don't want to have to do it again. I'm going to have a go at my fourth setting. Now I've had to start using some ideas from We're Going on a Bear Hunt story, but I'm not doing them exactly the same, and that's absolutely fine. You can use the ideas. It's called magpieing, that's a good word, that is. So it's not quite stealing, it's just borrowing some ideas, but I've changed them slightly, I've adapted them. So let's have a look at my fourth setting. Okay, my setting number 4 is a puddle. It's not just any puddle, it's a cold, wet puddle. Okay, so I've not used a cold, deep river, but it's kind of the same because I've used some water and I've called it a cold, wet puddle. Now, if you are stuck for ideas, maybe you can have a flick through or have a look from, sorry, I can't speak, have a look at the Michael Rosen video to see if you can magpie any ideas. So pause the video now for me, have a go at setting number 4 and keep on remembering to add these to your pile so we don't lose them. See you in a minute. Okay, I'm adding my cold wet puddle to my pile. It's getting good, I'm getting a good pile now. I've only got 2 more to go. I've got my hot sandy desert, I've got my thick green weeds, I've got my sharp jagged rocks, and finally I've got my cold wet puddle. Time for setting number 5. I'm going to magpie another idea I think, but I've got a good idea for this one, so let's have a look. Okay, so I've magpied the idea from the swirling, whirling snowstorm, but I've not used a snowstorm. I've called this one a dust storm because I know that deserts can be quite dusty. And where tortoises live, I know that it gets very hot and there's not a lot of moisture, so they can get quite dusty. So the adjectives that I've used for this one, I've said dry and sneezy dust storm because well, I don't know about you, but dust makes me sneeze. So I've used that as I thought it might, when I'm retelling my story, the sounds that we could use, I can maybe use achoo, achoo. Okay, so I've not written anything down. All I've done is draw my pictures, but I'm thinking along the way of kind of some adjectives or some sounds that I could use for when we retell the story. So just have maybe a little think in your head to see if you could think of anything. So I want you to pause your, sorry, I don't know what I'm going on about today. I want you to pause my video here, and I want you to have a go at setting number 5 for me. As I say, magpie away if you want to. You can use some of, well, you can use any of your own ideas if you've got them. Keep going, well done. Come back to me in a minute. Okay, I hope setting number 5 went well. We've only got one more to think of. So I'm going to add my dust storm to my pile. I've got 5 now. I've got my hot sandy desert. I've got my thick green weeds, I've got my sharp jagged rocks, I've got my cold wet puddle, and finally I've got my dry sneezy snowstorm. So I'm going to have a think about my last one. Now, my last one, I'm not going to use a cave, but I'm going to use something like a cave, because I know that Sonic, my tortoise, has one of these in his little house because it makes him feel safe. So I'm going to use something similar that a wild tortoise might use as well. So you can use your imagination, you can use whatever you like. It might be realistic, it might be not. It's up to you. Let's have a look. Okay, this is my final setting, and I know it looks a little bit like a cave, but I'm calling it a hide because that's what we call it for Sonic in his little house. So I've drawn my hide. I've not added a lot of information to this, a lot of detail to this one. I've just kind of drawn it as what it looks like. So, but for this one I've used, or I'm thinking of using, the adjectives dark and dingy. So you can see in there, which is where the tortoise might be. I know that Sonic likes to hide in his. Sometimes it gets them, if it's really hot, like in my hot sandy desert, if it's too hot for them, they can go in a hide, and it keeps them nice and cool. So I've got my last setting, I've got my dark dingy hide. I wonder what you've come up with today. So I'm going to put my dark dingy hide, the last one, on my pile. So I have got my hot sandy desert, I have got my thick green weeds, I've got my sharp jagged rocks, I've got my cold wet puddle, I've got my dry sneezy dust storm, and I've got my dark and dingy cave. As I say, I've not written anything down. All I've had to think about are some adjectives that maybe I could describe my settings with. So I don't want to see any writing today, don't need to see it. I mean, you can have a think of some adjectives, but I don't want you to write them down today. All I want to see is 6 pictures. 6 different pictures of your 6 different settings, and as I said before, we're going to use these for the rest of the week. Okay, so we're going to do kind of a story map tomorrow, but it's not a story map as we've done them before. It's called Boxing Up, so it's kind of a different way of telling a story map, but I magpied this idea. I've done Boxing Up before, but I've done it differently. But I magpied this idea from Isabel's mummy in my class, where you do it on separate pieces of paper, so you can move things around a bit if you want to. So thank you very much to Mrs. Blakemore, because that's really helped me out. If I could give Canterbury credits to parents, that would be super, wouldn't it? So can you send me a picture of your settings? Make sure that there's 6 of them, because remember, in the actual story there's 6 different settings, aren't there? Let me have a look. Let's find those pictures again. Okay, so we've got the 6 different settings that the family had to walk through to find the bear in We're Going on a Bear Hunt. So I've got 6 different settings that I want my family to go through when we're going on a tortoise hunt. So I can't wait to see, and your teachers can't wait to see the settings that you have come up with for your own stories. Have fun drawing them. See how much detail you can add, because again, as I say, that will make it a little bit easier for you to write the bits later on in the week. Have fun, and I will see you soon. Bye.